Hello and welcome back to the We'll Bring the Popcorn Film and TV podcast. I'm Brad. To my left is Josh, and today we are reviewing Karate Kid Legends and Season 2 of The Last of Us.
For our film review this week, we have the film Karate Kid Legends. Now, ever since we've heard about this film, we were wondering, is it going to be directly tied to Cobra Kai, or was it going to be kind of off doing its own thing? And we kind of get a little bit of an answer when we get into that film here. But the story is about a young boy named Li Feng who is, growing up, learning Kung Fu from his great uncle, who is played by Jackie Chan, who was Mr. Han, who was the teacher in the Karate Kid reboot with, Jaden Smith, and, it kind of has that connection to Karate Kid here where, he's learning Kung Fu. His mom, played by Ming-Na Wen, who is just absolutely fantastic in everything she's in, is getting a job in New York as a nurse. So they're uprooting their lives and moving to New York and kind of starting over, starting fresh. And you get the whole backstory with Li Feng and why his mom's so much against him learning Kung Fu and fighting and everything, based on kind of a pretty grim backstory that he has here with his connection to his brother, who unfortunately passed. We're getting into some spoiler stuff here. We kind of have to kind of talk about the plot here, but you get, him adjusting to life in New York, and, as with everything in Karate Kid, conflict gets solved through fighting in karate and kung fu at this point. So you get kind of some of that heart from Karate Kid. But how did you feel about this? How did you feel about this film?
I kind of had lower hopes going into it because just from the trailers and everything, because I wasn't sure exactly what to take from it. I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. It has its problems and issues. It's only an hour and 30 minutes, hour and 34 minutes very with rushed. Credits and everything. Yeah. So it's a very quick story, and I think that works for it, but also worked against it in ways because, as you mentioned, our first probably hour of the film is, we learn that he's been secretly kind of learning Kung Fu behind his mom's back. But when your mom's an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., Mulan, right, a bounty hunter in the Star Wars universe, sure, among the 50,000 other roles she's done, you can't hide much from her.
I love it.
And they move to New York, and he, like you said, immediately finds a nemesis that he's going to be going against. But he finds a friend in Mia, which I thought she was fantastic. She reminded me of kind of a young Jennifer Lawrence, Jennifer Lawrence is our age, so it's kind of hard for me to say a young Jennifer Lawrence, but she reminds me a lot of her, but she did fantastic. I thought she was really core to the heart and the soul and the feeling of this film. Mm-hmm. But this is another one where advertising felt like we know what people want to and think they're going to see out of this movie, and even though Jackie Chan is in it and Ralph Macchio is in it, they play kind of a very small part in it until that last 30 minutes. And then it's still maybe 5-10 minutes of screen time for Ralph Macchio and maybe 15 for Jackie throughout the whole hour and a half running time, so it kind of sold itself as a kind of a different movie than it was in the end. But I did like the story presented. Is that last 30 minutes or so was a bit rushed because it's setting up that he's in New York now, he's getting a friend, now he's got a nemesis, now you're finding out about, her dad, Mia's dad, Victor, has a pizza place, and he gets the nickname of Stuffed Crust because he asks him if they have stuffed crust, but this is New York, this is a family pizzeria, you need to go somewhere else to find stuffed crust. And Joshua Jackson was kind of surprised. I forgot that he was in this movie.
I did too.
And he plays, the owner of the pizza place. He's also a former boxer, so there's some interesting, but he does a great job in this film. I think he and Mia and Li Feng were great together. I think Ben Wang did a fantastic job, not only from the action sequences, but the acting and the emotion and everything with it too. But I enjoyed it quite a lot. I just felt like it was very rushed, and it was kind of a different picture than the advertisements told you it was going to be.
Sure, because when you think of Karate Kid, you automatically think of Danny LaRusso. Like, he's been the central character, even though like Cobra Kai is very much Johnny's story, like he's still very heavily involved in Cobra Kai as well. But when you think of Karate Kid in the Karate Kid universe, you think of Daniel LaRusso, and he does have a very minor part to play in it. And, good on them for kind of connecting it to that, but this very much feels like its own entity here, with the exception of tying in, Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio in bits and pieces here, but it's very much a Li Feng, Li Feng movie, which is fine. I don't have an issue with that, and him bringing, these two senseis in to help him train for this. It's called the Five Boroughs, which is actually a really fun tournament idea. I think they say in New York where you get these random fights throughout the city.
And they're on the streets,
like on the streets. And I know the finale was on top of a building and all that stuff, but
on a skyscraper.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, kind of inventive ways to kind of bring that into like a new story here, while kind of still tangentially connecting to the old stuff that gives you just that little bit of nostalgia kick that I think is not completely satisfactory, but just enough to be like, okay, like we get some nostalgic kick out of this too, because you get, the connection to Mr. Han to Mr. Miyagi, and like you get some fun interplay with them too as well, like Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio's characters meeting up eventually in this story, and
they were great when they were on screen together, which wasn't often, awesome. But they had such a fun dynamic because one's kung fu, the other's karate, and they're like, no, we need to do it this way, you need to do it that way, we need to do it this way, and of course Li Fong gets to be a part of that a couple times, which is pretty rough for him, but it was entertaining when they were together. You kind of wanted to see more of it. That is what kind of they sold you through the marketing of this movie, that it's a big Karate Kid movie. Well, I mean, it is, but those two were barely a part of it.
Yeah, and I think what really it helps that it's a quicker paced movie, but it also kind of hurts it in the sense that some of the stuff felt like super rushed. Like it felt like he had maybe 5-10 minutes of the movie to get ready for this tournament when he was supposedly like not training as much as he could be and should be to get ready to fight this guy that was, built like this unstoppable, force.
He's won it every year for like the last 5 years.
He's won it several years, and he's the reigning defending champion, and he just mows through a lot of his competition super easy. We're supposed to believe this kid who's barely trained can, in a week, take this guy down. Yeah. It's and a little far-fetched.
And that dojo is very much Cobra Kai, just not being called Cobra Kai.
It's very much basically a carbon copy of Cobra Kai from the original Cobra Kai, and it suffered a little bit from that pacing, I think. I think they could have taken a little bit more time to go through the training aspect of it instead of feeling that rushed. And even the tournament itself felt super rushed.
Yeah, like I said, most of that with the tournament and his main story with the fight was the last 20 to 30 minutes of the film. Like it was barely that part of it. Like that first hour was fun setting up the relationship between him and Victor and Maya and setting up everything there. So it was Mia or Maya? I can't remember if it was Mia. It's Mia instead of Maya. But that was fun and set up. But then it was like, all right, now we actually got to get to the tournament and everything else, because it's like Jackie, Mr. Han shows up and like, oh, I'm going to go get someone else to help us, and I'm going to come back, and then you got a week to train you. Oh, you're trained. Let's go fight. And it's like,
very quick.
Okay.
Very quick. So often we see some of these movies that like tend to drag on, and like even just with the movie we talked about last week where they're like, they probably could have trimmed 20-25 minutes off of this film and it would have been a lot better, if not more. This one I felt could have had the extra benefit of being an extra 20 minutes, I think.
It probably needed another 20 to 30
like to
minutes.
really like flesh out the story and have that impact, because I'm not going to lie, like it felt like a foregone conclusion that he was going to win the tournament anyway, but like it felt so rushed that I almost didn't have that climactic feel to
didn't feel satisfying.
Like a satisfying payoff in the end when he does. And the last fight is really cool. I like how they shot it and everything like that, but it was a little underwhelming when they got to the tournament for me. Like it was fine up until then. The character stuff was good. It was fun. Joshua Jackson was a bright spot in this film as well. Loved him back in, going as far back as the Mighty Ducks days and, things like that. And love seeing him as an adult now, full circle, and him coming back and doing really well in this movie, playing, Mia's dad, the owner of the pizza shop, like you mentioned, and his relationship with, Lee that evolves over the course of the movie as well, like the friendship and the bond that they've kind of formed too, with him helping him get ready for his fight. And they have some of that heart in the story that I thought was really well done. It's just one of those movies that I think could have, I don't want to say drug out because it's not the right way to put it, but it could have expanded upon some of the story a little more to make it have that heavier impact when it gets to the end. Because like I said, that last 20 minutes of that movie is a breakneck pace to get ready, get to the tournament, fight, win, game over.
And the fights were very, 10, 15, 30 seconds if you were
very
lucky.
Quick. Very quick. It felt like it was very much a two-man tournament, which it was anyway.
And you really only saw his fights too. Like you saw his and Connor, the main villain, his nemesis and everything in there. But all the other fights you didn't. I mean, there's a huge board of names of people fighting, but you just saw their fights because they were, and it was kind of like which I didn't mind. It was almost like a video game type of presentation as they did it, but it was the last half of the movie was very rushed.
Yeah, and it could have, like I said, it could have stood to use an extra 15, 20 minutes probably. That really would have, I think, helped drive that home a little bit, let it breathe a little bit too, because the first half of the movie is really solid character work, really solid character story. It was really well done. It's just that last little bit of it that felt really rushed. But I'm not gonna begrudge it too much because it's a story that made sense. It's easy to follow along. It's got heart. It's got humor that you want out of Karate Kid. It's got some really cool fight scenes, action stuff. I still, for the life of me, will never be able to figure out how they do that dragon kick. Like, that is insane, the amount of athletic ability it takes to pull that off, because it looks incredible, and just the physical feat it does to pull that off is insane. But it's some really cool, like, fight scenes and stuff like that when you get there, and sprinkled in a little bit throughout with a mix of a good heart. You get a really solid Karate Kid-esque type story out of this, which I feel like they did a solid enough job with that.
Yeah, and like you brought up the dragon kick, it looked really good, and they're physically actually doing it and everything. But there were some of the tournament fights where there was like a throw of somebody, and you could clearly tell they use wire work for that. Like, you've done such good, from what we could tell, practical fights up to that point. Why throw in some wire work in those final fights and stuff as well? But yeah, like you said, the first hour or so, it was really set up good. It was getting the relationship building between Maya and Mia.
It's Mia. You're going to do that 3 more times.
I have a family member named Maya, so my name wants to go, when I get something close to that, it wants to go to her name and stuff. But it was setting up the relationship really well, and setting up his school, and setting up Victor. And you got, Victor had a fight as well, which was pretty well done. You kind of, most everything was telegraphed. You knew what exactly was going to happen with it and everything. So it was, I really do think they needed an extra 20 minutes or so in there. And it was a bit disappointing with Ralph Macchio and Jackie Chan being in there, because I loved what they did when they were there, but they were barely a part of the movie. Right. But it was also, as you mentioned in the intro of this review, we were wondering if it was connected to Cobra Kai, and if it was connected to the Karate Kid from 2010 that Jackie Chan did with, Jaden Smith and stuff. But Jackie Chan's really never showed anything that he was connected. Like, he was the same character in name, but basically everything else was different, because we got an emotional impact in that Karate Kid where we got to see a little more emotional acting out of him and stuff. But here it was just, well, he's got his kung fu that he's teaching everybody, but Dre and them, I don't even remember if it was Dre ever mentioned. No. I don't remember it ever mentioned. So there was really no connection on that side. And Ralph's side, it really wasn't connected to Cobra Kai. Like, there's something that we don't want to spoil that connects it slightly, but we do go to Daniel's home, and it's a completely different set than it was in Cobra Kai. It was actually the set of Mr. Miyagi's house from the original Karate Kid film. So it was kind of night and day between that. So if you're looking for it to connect to Cobra Kai, it was like, that's kind of strange how the house looks completely different, because it is. I looked at screenshots and everything between the show and here. It's more in line with the film, which is good, but it's kind of ignoring 99% of what Cobra Kai did.
Yeah, and it was funny you mentioned that, because I was doing a little research. Spoiler, we're recording this on a Friday, and we had just seen it last night, but I was kind of doing a little bit of research this afternoon before we started, like, filming this and stuff. Ralph Macchio kind of came out and said, like, they had that set built, and it got tore down from the movie, and then he did Cobra Kai, and he literally went from finishing Cobra Kai to filming Karate Kid Legends, and they had the set where they were filming Cobra Kai. I believe it was in Atlanta is where they were filming it, and I think they filmed Karate Kid Legends somewhere else. I forget where they filmed somewhere else, but they had the Miyagi house set up almost intentionally identical to the one from the film. They have it look a little different, but he said it was kind of like a trip for him to kind of go back and have that set up to where it looked a little bit different there. But that just goes to show it's not really connected. It's got minor winks and nods, and
it just kind of ruins that immersion a little bit, because I mean, it is the original Miyagi house that they styled it towards from the film, but it didn't connect to Cobra Kai, which was the last thing that, a lot of your viewers going into this are going to be fans of the original film, but a lot of them are going to be
Pulled in
coming
from
in
Cobra
from
Kai.
Cobra Kai.
Yeah, and when he's talking about teaching Miyagi karate, it's not Miyagi-Do karate. It's not Miyagi, like he's not saying Miyagi-Do in it, and it just goes to show that it is and it isn't. But there's a very, very not so subtle wink and nod to it at the very end. If you go see this movie, stay before the credits roll. There's a little extra scene there at the end.
So that was a lot of
Before
fun.
the credit rolls, which was awesome. I was so happy to see that, and I was just like, that's the hook at the end that people are probably going to be talking about more than the actual movie itself, was the tie-in at the end there, which was really fun. But yeah, I mean, at the end, it's a solid film. Like, it was cool. It was a cool original Karate Kid story, but it being sold as Karate Kid Legends, like, the name alone would have you think they would be more heavily involved in the film.
Legends are in
than
it for
they
10
were.
minutes.
Right, and the Legends are like, okay, so the kid's leaning on the Legends to help him get ready for this tournament, which, okay, I get it, but feels a little bit misleading in the name of the film, but I get it. And if this is like the wrap up, the final appearance that Ralph Macchio is going to have, maybe not. You never know if they go back to this
if
well.
this film does well or
Yeah,
not.
like, you never know if they're going back to this well or not, but it was fun. I had a fun time watching it. It's got humor. It's got a little bit of heart to it. They dive into that backstory of why, his mom was not wanting him to fight karate and stuff. And you get kind of this heartbreaking story about his brother that was, kind of touching and totally understandable with how he, freezes up in certain situations and stuff like that. So they do a good job of explaining that.
Kind of past that, it was kind of a standard Karate Kid type affair. Like,
Pretty much, yeah.
It goes by the books of what you've
Yeah.
kind of seen and know and expect of a Karate Kid movie, but
Sure.
it did it well enough to me that I thought it did a fine job. Like, it could have done something a little different, but I mean, you had the drama with his brother and what, that meant to him, and you got a little drama and emotion in there. It was just, the biggest thing is that just sharp of like, all right, we've set everything up, now let's take 20 minutes to give you the payoff. And it was like, just rush.
Get the big training montage right into the tournament. Like, it was almost kind of jarring. Like, they just jumped right into the tournament too. There was like no real like, all right, I'm gonna get ready, but it was like
fights leading up to it, nothing else.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna jump straight into this tournament.
straight in and fight. Let's go. And they got down to business, which in some respects I kind of appreciate, but it was still kind of jarring as a viewer. Like, okay, we're gonna rush this along. It's like, oh, it almost felt like they cut a good 5 to 10 minutes of the film out, like, just to get to the tournament.
It's feel like you got someone behind the camera. It's like, all right, we're running out of time. We gotta go.
Yeah, we're behind schedule. We got to get this film across the finish line or something. I don't know if that was the case. I don't know. I'm not gonna act like I know like that was the case, but it definitely felt rushed towards the end. But at the end we got a solid story out of it, though.
Yeah, so in the end, Karate Kid Legends was a fun Karate Kid movie. It did kind of advertise it as a different movie than you really got, and it has a really kind of sharp, just, we've set up this story, and now we're going to rush to the end. So it could have done better with that. It could have done better with Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio of giving them a little bit more substance and making sure that everything was connected to this whole Karate Kid universe that has been created now, but it kind of forgets a good bit of stuff that it has just to bring them in. But I mean, they were fun. Yeah. Ralph and Jackie were so fun playing off of each other and bringing them back in, but it did feel a bit rushed in the end. I'm going to give it about a 7.5. I think that it had good action. Ben Wang was fantastic. You had pretty much everyone did their roles very well, but it was a very kind of cookie cutter type of Cobra Kai person and Johnny person that he's going up against. And it did just feel a little bit too rushed in the end.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm giving it about a 7 myself, not quite a 7.5, only because of the pacing issues, the quick cuts in, and a lot of it has to do with the lack of involvement of your two legends, really. When you call it Karate Kid Legends, you think they're going to have kind of a bigger role with, Lee in the film, and Ralph Macchio barely having an appearance in the movie to begin with. Like, I agree, when they're in there, great. It's awesome. It's really fun. The chemistry between Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio in this film is awesome. They're a lot of fun together, trying to have the push and pull on which way is the right way to train. Is it the Kung Fu way? Is it the karate way? And there's a lot of fun involved in that in a very quick, brief appearance in this movie, but it's a lot of fun that they get when they get in there. But, Ben Wang carrying the weight of this film does a solid job of carrying the movie almost exclusively by himself here, with the exception of some of these characters who also make an appearance here. But he does a lot of the heavy lifting, and he does a fine job of it. So I think landing it on a 7, I probably would give it closer to an 8 if it had kind of given itself another 15 to 20 minutes to breathe as a movie. I think it would have done it a lot of good here. And just for that, it kind of knocks it down a little bit for me, but it's still a very fun movie. I want to see it again. I'm going to watch it again. It's a movie I'd watch again when it comes on streaming. Like, absolutely, watch it again when it comes on. This is not a one and done type film for me. I'll see it multiple times. So a high replayability for me, it'll save it on the score as well.
Yeah, it was a well shot, well acted, decent film, had good action overall. It was just that rushed kind of storyline. It set up an interesting story, but it just kind of, all right, we got to the cliff, now let's just jump off in the last 20 minutes and do the entirety of the movie in the last 20 minutes that we need to get to. So, yeah, 7 to 7.5 is a fair within there. I may be a little closer to 7 looking at it now, but it was fun. I enjoyed it, but it had its problems, it had its issues, and it needed, like, I wasn't expecting a big connection to Cobra Kai, but expecting to at least acknowledge that they're bringing these characters who were last seen in Cobra Kai and last seen in The Karate Kid from 2010 and have something that ties it past the characters, but really all they did was use the characters.
Yeah, and it could have helped tying that story in that way too. Like you said, just no mention of anything that Han did with the reboot that he was in, and the complete lack of it was a little sad to see, but it's still Jackie Chan. I love Jackie Chan. You could put Jackie Chan in.
Even though we're not a huge fan, I wasn't a huge fan of that Karate Kid, but there was some good scenes from Jackie with the emotion and the heart and everything behind it, but it kind of just left that all to the wayside, and this was almost a new character from what was in that Karate Kid.
I'd say like the only real connection that it made other than the character's name was the teaching with the take the jacket on, take the jacket off, that kind of stuff that incorporated in his training is still there. Like, I'd be remiss if we didn't at least say that. Like, there is that was very much a heavy part of helping him train, Dre in that film. Like, you have that element, so it's not completely erased if you want to make that argument, but still that's about as far as it goes for that. And it's fun. Go see it in theaters. Give it a chance. Check it out. Like, I hope it does really well, and we'll see what the box office holdovers are for it. Unfortunately, it's still up against a very big juggernaut in Lilo and Stitch that's continuing to make money hand over fist, which you love to see. And then you got some absolute monster movies coming in behind it here in the next several weeks that may unfortunately hinder its impact at the box office. I know the viewing that we went and saw wasn't that heavily viewed, which is a little disappointing considering how popular Cobra Kai was as a show, and just the following that the Karate Kid films have had over the years. Like, I hope it does well enough to maybe see if they warrant another trip down it. But if it's the last Karate Kid thing we get, it's a solid note to go out on. It's a fun movie, and I got a lot of enjoyment out of. Go see it in the theaters and support it. Go check it out. Karate Kid Legends is in theaters now. One we definitely recommend checking out. If you go check it out, come to our Discord. Let us know in the YouTube comments what you think of this film when you go see it. We'd love to talk about it with you.
Yes, I want to move us into our TV review. So we are recapping and talking about Season 2 of The Last of Us, a series that is not controversial in any way, shape, or form. It is a very bland, boring, nothing happening type of show where no one is discussing or talking about based off of a game that no one has ever talked about.
Yeah, no one's ever talked about, no one's ever played. It's got no controversial storylines in this film or in this game whatsoever that they adapted into the show. But yeah, let's talk about it. Let's dive into it.
Yes, I mean, if you're a fan of the game series at all, the second part of The Last of Us was very controversial. Things that it did, relationships, emotions, characters, subject matters, a lot of controversy that happened with it. And Season 2 made a lot of changes from the game, some for good, some for worse. But I think the biggest problem this season had to me was its 7 episodes. It didn't really feel like it had enough time to breathe. Each episode almost felt disconnected from each other a little bit, like it was just kind of moving through, all right, here's this scene, let's film it, that's episode. Here's this scene, let's film it, that's episode. It was just kind of like Last of Us Part 2 is Ellie's story. It's a lot of stuff with her and everything else, and really, that part of it was about maybe 3 episodes, while the other 4 was about Abby and was about Joel and about everything else, even though you got Joel and, Ellie's relationship was being explored and talked about more. Like the main emotional journey that she goes on in the game was almost like booking. It was just small bits of information that you got, and it presented a lot of the stuff in a different way. And of course, it has its Negan moment, and of course, there's going to be spoilers about this. Heavy spoilers about it, but in The Last of Us Part 2 game, Joel is killed. And killed by Abby, and killed early. This happens in episode 2 of the season. And it's a big episode. It's probably one of the best episodes of the season. I think I enjoyed episode 4 as well, where they're kind of going through the subway area where they're going into the cars and trying to run from all the clickers and everything else. It had a lot of tension. It had a lot of heart because you had, a lot of talking and a lot of character exposition and stuff going on with that. But a lot of it just felt like it was a little bit disconnected emotionally. Like by the end of the 7th episode, I really wondered, like, did I really care about what happened in this season?
Yeah, I get that. Like my biggest issue with the whole thing is they're taking this second game and they're essentially splitting it up into 3 seasons. Like it's going to be a 3-season story arc for the second game. And in a lot of people's opinions, myself included, the first game is an absolute masterpiece in storytelling, and you rush through pretty much the entirety of the game in 1 season. And then you jump into the second game, which is significantly more controversial, especially with the fact that you kill your main protagonist from the first game in the first hour of the game, basically, in the first hour of playing the game. And then you go on this story with Ellie, who... People have very strong opinions about Ellie as a character. People have very strong opinions about Abby as a character, and it's very much a Ellie rampage trying to get revenge for the death of Joel story. And what I think is really happening with this show now is it's still overall a solid season of storytelling, but a couple big issues for me are the pacing of the story now, where you're taking the second game and you're expanding it into 3 full seasons. We couldn't get that for the first game, which was a better game and a better story, in my opinion. Like you couldn't have had that be 2 seasons and the other 2 seasons be the second game.
I agree.
If you wanted to do a 4-season story arc, because there was a lot of meat on the bone in the first game that you just completely blew through to get through the first season, which was a great season. The pacing was fine. I didn't have an issue with it. 1, it was a longer season, and 2, it did enough to explore a lot of the meat of the game, and I was satisfied with that. Now you're taking it and really expanding it out, but you're also dealing it with the most controversial game. I think what's really hurting it as a show for me personally is it's falling into what I call the Walking Dead paradox. And what I mean by the Walking Dead paradox, and you call it the Negan moment, where you have this brutal death of one of your main characters, one of your most beloved characters, like Joel, Pedro Pascal. Who doesn't love Pedro Pascal? Absolutely brilliant, phenomenal actor. Everybody loves Pedro Pascal. You kill him in the second episode. We know that character's death is coming if you've played the game. Like, you know it's coming, when it's going to happen. It happens the second episode. Now you've got essentially 2 3/4 of a season to go beyond that, where your most popular character is gone. But what I don't like is that it's getting away from, like, The Walking Dead at its core when it was at its best, were the zombies as the real threat with some human conflict mixed in, but it was still very much about surviving in the zombie apocalypse against the zombies. And then it became more of an interhuman type story fighting, and it just felt like a soap opera at that point, which is a lot of people's complaints about The Walking Dead and what it became. Like, the zombies were secondary, far secondary compared to the interpersonal conflicts that happened, and I think you're starting to get more of that in this show, where they did such a good job of introducing the very real danger of the clickers and those creatures in season 1 of the show as well. And they're just a byproduct in season 2.
Yeah, like, season 2 is like, oh, they're there. But
outside of that episode with Joel's death, where they were heavily featured as, like, rampaging through this town.
Then episode 4 with them trying to escape.
A little bit of episode 4, and that's kind of it. It becomes more of a, we're getting revenge on Abby and her crew, like, tying up the rest of the season, like, trying to hunt Abby down. But it feels like it's leaning a little too much more into that interpersonal conflict, where a lot of the appeal is the very real danger of, the infection, the infected, and, trying to survive that, while having a little bit of human conflict intermittent in it, and it's so much more heavy the other way that I think it'll turn a lot of people off. And I get that and understand it. And it's the same thing The Walking Dead had, and that's kind of why I make the comparison. But I think it's an apt one in this point because the clickers don't even feel like they're really a problem in the show. It's just more like people fighting with each other, and it's not as appealing to me.
Yeah, because this was mainly the Wolves, which is Abby's group, and then the Cult that were gruesome at times in there, but you didn't get to go too deep in exactly what was going on with them. You got that they're another threat outside of there, but yeah, you've got the clickers and the infection and everything else. It's kind of taken a back seat other than what was it, episode 6, where she actually goes down and where spores and stuff are around, and she has one final conflict with one of the people she's chasing down and stuff. That's the only really episode that brought back like, oh yeah, this is about the infection and about spores and what's happening and what causing to the world and stuff. And I get that interpersonal connection between these groups and stuff, and about her revenge being about Abby, but it didn't feel as much about Ellie's journey in this season, because there's several flashbacks that brought us more with Pedro and stuff, and they were good, but did they service the overall story, which is supposed to be this heavy emotional journey of Ellie not having her father figure anymore and figuring out her life on her own while also getting revenge and doing all this stuff. And her revenge story, like I said, it may have filled 3 of the 4 episodes altogether, and it wasn't even the full like part of those episodes and stuff, and it just felt like it lost some of the emotional impact. Like again, like the Negan with him killing Glenn and everybody there, it zapped you, and it gave you an episode after Joel was killed to kind of sit in it a little bit and people to get that emotion. But I don't think it was as bad as what happened with The Walking Dead, because Walking Dead was also in season 8 when that happened, or 7 or 8, something like that happened. But it did feel like after it happened, you lost kind of the heart of the story. You kind of lost the heart of what you were telling and stuff, because it became just, I don't know. It was like the game, but it lost a lot of the impact of the game. But again, this was a very controversial game.
Sure.
A lot of people either love it, loathe it, or hate it, and it's very mixed. Like again, as you said, the first one highly rated, second one very controversial. It was still a good game,
still a highly rated game,
but like you said, it's set up, and we're looking at season 3 is all going to be about Abby, about her 3-day journey from Seattle to, or either Seattle to Joel, or her journey back from killing Joel. It's going to be all about Abby, Abby was a very controversial character, and this series added more controversy because they didn't get a very ripped girl to go into it, even though she had lost her mom in real life right before she went to film this series. So she brought some, and she's a good actress and stuff in it, but it does feel that there's quite a bit of a change in the Abby character. It was a very hated character from the game, and now you're going to potentially give an entire season that won't be out until 2027 to one of the most hated characters in the game. So it's like, well, we may not get a fully finished until 2029 if they keep it on the same schedule. So you're looking at 2025 to 2029 to get the full story to come back to Ellie and finish things off. Like, I don't know if that's going to be the right choice for them or not, if they're going all in on Abby's story for season 3, because it's a part of the game and it's a part of the story, but does it need to be an entire season?
Yeah, and that's the line they're going to have to walk, and it appears to be the line they're trying to walk, and we'll see if they're successful or not. But I mean, we can sing some of the praises of the show. It's still a well-written season. Like you go a little bit on this journey with Ellie, who is like she is in the game, still very young, still trying to figure herself out, but is very, very impulsive, very, rage-filled, doesn't know what direction to point it. My biggest issue with the way they've written her is you have some of these moments where you're flashing back to Joel trying to teach her patience and trying to teach her some of these things to learn. Like, you don't have to go bowl in a china shop everywhere you go to get things done. You have to kind of pick and choose and, pick your spots and be patient and things like that. And then you just flash forward again, and she just tosses all of it out the window, and she goes back like a bull in a china shop again. And that's kind of frustrating for me. And it's not smart writing, really, because if you're going to have these flashbacks, why are you having these flashbacks then? Like, if he's like, I'm trying to teach you
To
patience.
show Pedro.
But she completely, it's basically what it is a way to get Pedro Pascal, keep him in the show, like for the flashbacks, which you have the Joel flashbacks in the game as well. So I appreciate the continuity there, but me as, somebody who pays attention to story beats and how things go, it doesn't make much sense for me storytelling wise to have those flashbacks where he's trying to teach her those things. Then you flash forward and she's just completely ignoring him anyway. That one really did. And there was one scene, and I know we're going to kind of bounce around. We're not really going linearly to talk about like beat by beat the season, because frankly, we don't have the time or the patience to do that, really. But it's one of the things that really irked me the most, story-wise, was you get to that last episode, and Ellie gets captured by the Seraphites, and they're getting ready to hang her. Like, she's getting ready to die. And then all of a sudden, there's like this explosion, and there's the wolves, and they go and they run off, and they leave her.
Oh, no, the camp.
Yeah, the
Just
camp,
leave her.
and they go run off and leave her. I'm like, in what story does that ever
Just
happen?
tired up to the tree and let's go, or
Right,
something
nothing.
like.
You're just like, I'll leave her. She's fine.
Or it's use a giant blade that you have in your hand that you've got everybody else person
Kill
with.
her.
Like, you've got 3 seconds where you could finish
Kill her
off.
quickly and then run. Like, that make no. I was so mad. I was so mad at that. I was like, come on, man. Like, I kind of threw my hands up when I watched it. I'm like, really? Like, in what logical story does a villain ever just let someone go? You have to. If there's an elaborate way that they escape, fine. I can roll my eyes at it a little bit, but they just flat over like, forget her.
Even when you got a little kid who's saying, yeah, let's kill her.
Right. And then you're just gonna leave her to go. Like, I was just like, come on, man. It made no sense. But they get to the shocking ending there, where you have this kind of conflict, a little bit of conflict with Ellie and Jesse, because Ellie's in love with Dina. They're together doing their thing, which is fine. Ellie's pregnant. That's like one of the big.
Dina's pregnant.
Dina's pregnant. Sorry, Dina's pregnant, and they're navigating that throughout this season.
I'm gonna be a dad, which was a funny.
It was
funny
funny.
line.
I have zero issues with any of that, but like, there's this very real conflict between Jesse and Ellie, because Jesse is the one that got Dina pregnant, and they have what appears to be a little bit of an understanding between them, and at least like you feel like they can move forward, and then it's just like 30 seconds later, Jesse's dead, and then he's gone, and then you're off on.
Because he runs full force through a door,
Yeah,
and
while they're being
she
attacked.
hits with like accurate precision of someone bolting through a door, not knowing, is he going middle, is he going left, is he going right? It's one shot and he's down. And then you want to end it with Abby pulling the gun on Ellie, firing at her, and it going
Basically
black.
point blank range.
But of course, when we come back, she's going to have missed Ellie, but she did that precision shot against Jesse. So it's like, my mind was already like, okay, you're going to fade to black, which is kind of a type of thing, but it's like, she shot someone, she had no idea what side, middle of the door, killed him one shot, but you're going to have her miss Ellie when she's emotional and stuff.
But was it? Here's the fun part, and this is where I just kind of rage a little bit. Was it Abby that pulled the trigger,
Or
did somebody get a shot off
Tommy?
the scare? Yeah, because you have the whole like what actually happened, and you don't know.
But then we're going to spend 3
Whatever,
seasons.
but we have to wait 4 years to see the outcome.
We're
of
going
it.
to spend a season 3 not even talking about it. So maybe the final episode of episode 3 will show it, and then we'll jump into the aftermath after. But it's like, it's just kind of just weird how they're structuring this. I agree with you. The first game should have been at least 2 seasons. You can get a little more action, you can get a little more heart and
Dive into
depth,
the
and then
story.
you split this into 2 seasons as well for that, because it's also when you have a game where you're playing and doing action and stuff, and so like of course part 2 you're playing as Ellie a lot, and you get to do action and shooting and killing and everything else, but in the show, Ellie almost looks like she doesn't know what she's doing ever, like handling a gun. 2 deaths in this series from her was accidental. She just accidentally shot. I mean, she beat somebody to death, but they don't show it. I feel like they were really shying away from actually showing the killings from her and from that side and stuff. Like, you got to see Joel a little bit, but you didn't really see all of it happening. You didn't get to see kind of the bigger, harder kills was kind of like cut away from, and it felt like they felt like a little scared. They tamed it down a little bit, and that's almost like what happened after Negan with The Walking Dead. It felt like things were tamed down a little bit more, and it became more about the human. And I don't mind the human element, but you gave one season to the clickers and the infection, and you did kind of lose that in here. I expected to see that a little bit more because you did have it in the game, and it just felt very strangely put together this season. Like they showed plenty of the game, but they missed on a lot of parts in season 2.
Yeah, and it's frustrating because at the end of the day, I still like the game. I still like the second game. Like, outside of the initial shock and awe of it, I don't like it as much as the first game. Like, and not nearly as much as critics like this second game as well, because it's still a very highly rated game. Visually gorgeous game. Like, stunningly gorgeous visual game. But the story got weaker in the second game. It's getting weaker in the show, and they're expanding it longer than what most of us would agree that it probably needs to be. I would be more on board with a longer third and final season, where instead of it being 7 episodes like the second season, maybe it's a little longer than the first season, and you just wrap it up then, where you do like a 13 or 14 episode season, really give us a full on ending to the game in the season. But it's TV, it's business. They're not going to do that. So
it's definitely stretching it out too far.
Yeah, and it's milking it for all it's worth, and I'm wondering if it's going to pay off for them, because I can't imagine the show doing as well, honestly, because I don't think you're going to have much involvement from Pedro anymore with the flashback stuff. Because you
might have a little bit,
maybe an offset appearance here or there, but I think you're kind of done with him in this instance.
Because in the 4 years that those last 2 seasons are going to come out, you're going to have...
He's going to be a little busy, too.
Doomsday and Secret Wars coming out, so he's going to be filming a lot of that stuff. Of course, Doomsday going on right now, but it's been delayed, so we don't exactly know how long that's going to be filming for. So, and he's got a ton of other projects he's doing. You just don't know, can you get him back? Is he going to change his look, and you're going to have to do wigs and fake mustaches and everything else to bring him back? It just... Yeah, it's crazy to stretch out thinking, because, we got season 2 in 2025. They've already confirmed it's 2027. It won't film season 3 till 2026.
Yeah, it'll film next year.
You won't get until 2027. So, that's 2028 to film, 2029 to release a final season. You're expecting people after a lesser season 2
to stick around for 4 more years.
Yeah,
it's a tall ask, and we'll see if they can. We'll see if they can drive that home. But yeah, I mean, like I said, the show was fine. It just feels like it's stretching it out a little too much. It's losing its way a little bit, I think. And
which is crazy. It's season 2.
That's
where most shows actually find their stride and become something great. Well, this one already kind of going down.
Feels like it hit a little bit of a wall or a hurdle here that it's struggling to get over. And hopefully they can right the ship and tell an interesting story with Abby in season 3. I don't know how successful that's going to be with a character as disliked as it is. Good, right, wrong, or indifferent. Feel how you feel about it.
Especially if they give her more episodes than season 2 got, which are talking about season 3 being longer than season 2. But you're giving it to the most disliked character a longer season than what season 2 was. Like, that just almost feels like a slap in the face to fans.
It's a troll.
Games. Like, I don't mind. I like all the actors and actresses and everybody in the series.
This isn't a personal.
It's the handling of the story.
Yeah, it's not a personal thing to anybody making the show or anything. It's just our opinion on where they're going with this story, and it's just disappointing, man, because the potential's there for a really solid story. I just feel like they're missing some things. Like, if you're gonna take some creative, liberties with the story, there's other things they can do to kind of make it more impactful, I think, and they're just not getting us there yet. Like, it's been successful. It's got some good moments in it, but it's just not the same as the heart and the heaviness of the first season. And we'll see if they can get it back for the next one.
Which makes it disappointing from a game studio that is known for crafting such brilliant, incredible stories. Like the Uncharted series is one of my favorite series of all time. Like, I know it ended with 4, but I want to go back and revisit that world and especially see it. Like the graphics and everything they did with that game before, like where we're at with the PS5 and everything was just mind-blowing what they did with it. I want to see another Uncharted game, and that was another one where, well, we got a movie of it, but we got Tom Holland being young, which is a fun movie, but it also kind of disregarded the game for pretty much most of that movie and stuff. So it feels like this studio that's pumping out fantastic story games are not getting the same care and treatment when it comes to the live action adaptations of it. Like, I didn't hate the Uncharted film. It was fun. I had a good time with it. I'm looking forward to seeing another one, but it wasn't the games.
Correct. Yeah, and they just take elements of it, and it's based on the game and all that other stuff. And we could argue semantics about that all day, but with, Last of Us Season 2 here, it definitely feels like it misses some of the mark. It keeps several of the story beats from the game in it, but I don't think it had the same emotional impact and effectiveness that it had in the game, and I think that's where it suffers in this season, getting that same emotion, that same feeling across. I don't know. It could just be the old curmudgeon in us here that are just having the issues with it, but I'm willing to go along for the ride if you take me there, but it didn't grasp me like the first season grasped me. Like, I still watched it. I can honestly say that this season I didn't watch every episode weekly as it came out. Like, I think once I got past the the Joel death episode, I waited a couple weeks before I went back and watched some of the others, and then going into this last week before we were doing this, watched the last couple episodes, and it landed where it landed, and we'll see where they go moving forward. Hopefully with season 3, they get a chance to, hopefully tell a quality story with Abby that people can relate to, and it gets people back on board and ready to see this ended with the 4th season. But I don't know, man. You got this long wait in between that HBO loves to do with their shows for whatever reason, and we'll see where it gets to when it comes back. If we were to give this season an overall score based on, the overall effectiveness of the story on a scale of 1 to 10, I would give Last of Us Season 2 a solid 7 out of 10. Like, it's not the best season of TV I've seen. It's not the worst. Like, it's still good in what it gets right, but it suffered from some serious pacing problems. It misses some of the mark on the human element as well. Like, it's a fine adaptation for it, but there's so much more meat on the bone that they could get from it. I'm gonna probably be harsher on the next couple seasons, if I'm gonna be completely honest with you. And we'll see where it goes from there, but I think a solid 7 out of 10 is a decent place to land at. Like, it's still an entertaining show, and it's still captivating in moments, but it's got a lot of it. I would give the first season a solid 9.5 for how good it was, and it just really took a significant step back for me in season 2.
Yeah, I'm probably going to give season 2 slightly lower with a 6.5 because I do think it was problematic that it was a controversial game. But it missed a lot of the beats. The acting was fine. It looked fine and stuff, but the story-wise, it just didn't keep you engrossed in it, especially after Joel's death and stuff. You were kind of like, okay, what's my reason to keep watching? And it didn't really give you that because it didn't give you a ton more with Ellie. Her story didn't feel like it was strong enough and that it gave the emotional weight that it should have. Sure. And Abby being such a hated character where she showed up in 2 episodes and now she's supposed to get a full season. Like, by the end of it, I felt like, what is my reason to keep watching and keep going? And then I didn't feel like I got that. Like, he left you that cliffhanger, but you were kind of like, really? Like, that's how we're going to end this, and we're going to jump to Abby now, so it's going to be 4 years before we get to see the climax. When you take all the real world stuff of how long it's going to take to see where that pays off, it does kind of leave you like, okay, what did you leave me with that makes me want to watch it anymore? And that's where I kind of feel like it failed as a show, but it also failed the game because it just didn't get that emotional impact and didn't really do it did an okay job, but it didn't do a great job with it. So yeah, I'm going with a 6.5. I would give the first season like an 8 to 8.5 for myself. So this dropping down to 6.5 is a pretty big drop off. Again, when we say most series, season 1 is normally a little lesser. while season 2 and 3 and on is where they really find their footing and they really get going big. But it feels like they took a step back.
Yeah, and I think we both knocked it down a couple notches from where we had season 1, and that's just it's more based on our love of the games and our love of things, and just hoping that it would have lended itself to a better story being told on screen here. And it's not to say that it's terrible, but it definitely misses the mark for the high hopes that we had based on our love for it, that we're being a little more critical of this than we normally have been for other things. And I think it's a fair grade for both of us. I almost went down below that for myself, just thinking, I was like, you know what, it's still a watchable show. It's still, solid storytelling, but I really worry about, and I'm kind of in the same boat with you, with season 3 being a full Abby story. Like, are you really going to dedicate an entire season to this character? Is it going to feel must watch for me when it comes out, much like season 1 was, and really season 2 was for a decent chunk of it, until we kind of got to us a little bit that we weren't as must see with it. Like, are we going to have that same feeling when it comes out in a couple years when they come back to this? Time will tell. Like, we'll see. I'm willing to give that first episode a shot just to see if it hooks me back in, but it may be another one that, like, unfortunately is one that, much like The Walking Dead, and we keep saying we meaning to go back and finish, this may wind up being a show like that for us, that we may not watch as it's coming out, but maybe get around to finishing at some point, and we'll see if it winds up in that. And it's in very real danger of being that for us.
Yeah, because are those 3 days that apparently Abby's story takes will be a part of in season 3? It's that 3-day journey that she has. Is that worth potentially a bigger third season than season 2 got, which had a lot more going on to it? And if you're just talking about her journey, like, what else could they possibly do with her journey that's going to make it interesting? It's a great actress for Abby. She's really good actress, but it's the story. Like, is there enough to have potentially a 10 episode season all dedicated to Abby when you only gave 7 to Joel's death and Ellie's emotional journey? And they didn't even... Joel was in 3 of the episodes, and Ellie's emotional journey was 3 of the episodes. It just felt like there was so much that was just missing from this season at 7 episodes. Like, it should have been much longer.
I can't see a world where that's 10 episodes. I just can't. And that's unfortunate, because there's some potential, a really solid potential story to be told there, and it feels like they're like slowly starting to lose their way a little bit and miss the mark, and that's unfortunate, because like you said, this is around the time that most shows find their footing and know who they are and really take that next step, and it just feels like this one, instead of taking a step forward, it took 2 steps back, really, and it's kind of unfortunate, but we'll see. The Last of Us season 2 is available on Max right now before it becomes HBO Max.
HBO Max.
Today it's still Max. Whenever you watch this episode, it could be HBO Max. It could be something completely different.
It could have a completely different name.
That's HBO and their marketing dilemma that they seem to have. But all of the episodes are available now. If you feel like we're missing the mark on our criticism of the show, come let us know. Come talk to us in Discord. Come to our YouTube comments. Let us know. Let us know on our social media posts what you think of the show. If you've watched it, if we're missing the mark, roast us like you did when we said Snow White wasn't the worst movie we've ever seen. So come tell us. Come talk to us about it. Let's have a conversation. We'd love to talk to you about it.
Yeah, so coming up this week is a movie we've been waiting for quite a while. It was delayed so they could. It basically sounded like they reshot the entire film because they weren't happy with what they did. But we have the ballerina spinoff of John Wick. This takes place between Chapter 3 and Chapter 4 of the John Wick story. So it's not a prequel. It's kind of set in kind of like what Black Widow was, because you're kind of setting it in between. But we're getting her story. Of course, we know the Baba Yaga is going to be in it. They've made sure to plaster him all over. But it gives me the feeling of John Wick. The action sequences look good from the trailer. I like her as an actress. I'm really curious to see how this actually ends up turning out, because it's going to be one that I'll try to forget about. But when it was filmed, ready to come out, and right before its release date, they're like, well, we're delaying it over a year, so we basically could reshoot it. You got to hope that there's something good there.
Yeah, it kind of gives you the pause to think about it when it comes like that. And it's also the last appearance of Lance Reddick, who shot his scenes before he passed in 2023 now. It's been almost 2 full years since he passed, and it's his last film role appearance, as well as the the main concierge at the Continental there. And
no one says, "Look, welcome to the Continental," the same
just
as
like
he
Lance,
does.
it's not going to be the same when they move past it to John Wick 5. But yeah, I've been looking forward to this too. We're lucky enough to go see it a little bit earlier than we would see our normal movies. We get it a day earlier, which is going to be fun and exciting. I'm ready to check that one out, but definitely a lot of fun. I'm excited to talk about it.
We also have Wes Anderson's latest film is getting the full wider release. It released limited before here, but it's also one that I'm going to butcher the name, the Phoenician Scheme. Phoenician Scheme. I knew I was going to, I've been sick and under the weather too, so my brain is not active for this episode.
It's okay. You butcher names.
So I'm like, I butcher everything, even when I'm perfectly healthy. So yeah. But I mean, if you like Wes Anderson's movies, you're going to be going to head out to this one. I enjoy them. They can be a little hit or miss. It definitely takes a certain.
They're weird.
It takes a certain person to like them.
Yeah.
They're more artistic. They're weird. You've got to be able to get into his sense of humor and style and everything else. But they've been rave reviewed films for forever that he's been putting out.
He gets big names in every single one of his movies. I mean, this one, it's got Benicio del Toro, it's got Scarlett Johansson, it's got quite a few big name actors and actresses in the film. So Wes Anderson keeps finding ways to make these weirdly shot looking movies, and they get a lot of critical praise. I'm gonna check them out for sure. But
he has a style that you don't even have to.
It's him.
You could take the title away, take his name away. You just show a little bit of footage. It's his film.
A Wes Anderson movie.
Yep.
So you get that hallmark very much from the trailers from this. But I'm definitely excited to check that one out too.
So On Demand, as I already mentioned last week, because I was so excited for it, is Sinners will be out on the day after this episode drops. We went ahead and talked about it last week because I'm excited to see it. I'm ready to watch this movie again. It has done so well. But also out this week is Hurry Up Tomorrow. So that's a Jenna Ortega The Weeknd film that didn't do so well in theaters, didn't get reviewed so well. We didn't get a chance to check it out. I don't know if you went and saw it without me.
I've seen the TikTok clips of some of The Weeknd's acting in it.
I've seen some of his acting too, and it was.
Let's stick to making music.
It looked a little rough, yeah.
Neither here nor there. But if you're into that sort of thing, if you saw it, check it out. It's coming on demand. It's very, very short. Stay in theaters. It had 2 weeks in the theater.
I think it had the 15-day window.
It had the 15-day window, and it's right out on streaming. So it'll be out this week.
Yeah, that'll be out on June 6th, along with The Surfer. So this is a Nick Cage action thriller drama that had gotten rave reviews. It had another very short theatrical run, a smaller, more independent film. It looked like it could be fun. We saw the trailer once in front of another movie and then never saw it again. We've heard good buzz about it, but I'm looking forward to checking that one out at least too. Like it might be a little bit longer before I check out Hurry Up Tomorrow. Maybe when it's hit streaming. Surfer, I might be worth a rent to see what that one ended up being because it looked like it might be decent. Like Nick Cage,
Nick Cage.
You can talk about how bad his movies are and other stuff, but he has had such an incredible run in the last 4 or 5 years, even though he's been doing weird, strange, over-the-top, crazy type of films, but most of them have actually been really solid. So it's like it just this weird kind of renaissance for him that he's come back so strong. Even in a lot of his films are smaller independent films, but he's coming back like really strong.
Yeah, Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. It's a fantastic movie. Pedro Pascal is also in it. Is awesome in that film. But yeah, he's definitely he keeps finding ways to make solid movies. You know what I mean? Like it's another one that I know, like you said, we didn't get a big release for it. I don't even think it aired on any screens near us, but it's one I'll definitely check out. It's Nicolas Cage. Of course I'm going to watch it.
And you got Spider Noir, which is going to be out next year. We saw our first, not clip of it, but our first screenshot of it with him in the suit and all black and white, and it looked fantastic.
Yeah,
so like I'm really looking forward to that. So he's going to do all these small independent, then he's going to go back and do a classic film noir Spider-Man. Like, all right. Go, Nick.
I'm here for it.
So on the streaming side, we have, which we talked about in an episode before, we finally got word of a Predator animated film coming out. Well, now is the time that is finally coming out. That is also out on June 6th on Hulu. So this is an anthology film where we got 3 different timelines for the Predator to be killing and mauling and doing everything for. I'm really looking forward to seeing what this is actually going to be like. They're telling 3 separate stories in a single film. I want to see how that flows together, how that works. And he has another Predator film coming out later this year that is the trailer got mixed reactions because, and some very poorly phrased reactions to it, like, oh, this Predator stars a child Predator. Might need to rethink that wording a little
work on your wording. But yeah, this is one that it looks really cool. The trailer for it looks solid. I'm excited to check it out. It's going to be one we talk about next week, but I'm very much looking forward to watching that.
Over on the TV side, we have Stick coming out on Apple TV Plus. So this is an Owen Wilson golf comedy series, which again, Apple TV plus some good actors is probably going to be a fairly good show.
Probably.
But I don't think I've even saw the trailer for it. I've seen a couple stills and I've seen information come out on it, but I haven't seen a trailer yet.
This is your weekly. We'll bring the popcorn shot time. Apple TV not promoting its stuff. There it is. If you're drinking along with us, cheers.
But yeah, it's getting word of mouth for a lot of the stuff, but I mean, you've got Owen Wilson in a golf comedy. You'd think you would be putting this out a little bit more. He's still got pretty good star power and stuff, and it looks like it'd be a fun show from what I've seen, but I just haven't seen it out in front of anything.
Guess the viral marketing is going to have to strike again on that one.
We also have, I wanted to throw him, as much as I love Alan Tudyk, he is just a chameleon in ways. You can see he does 376 voices for Disney movies and stuff. He's from Firefly to A Knight's Tale to he's in just about everything. His Resident Alien TV series that's on Sci-Fi and USA. That's also out on June 6th, along with, June 4th for Stick, June 6th for Resident Alien. This is season 4 of the show. It's a weird, strange, quirky, but really fun show, especially if you love Alan Tudyk. He is really fantastic in it.
He's amazing and worth watching. Literally everything.
The corny jokes in this show just kill me half the time because he thinks he's hilarious, but he is so corny. And like the alien thinks he's hilarious, but he is so corny, and that's what makes it because there's no one else other than Alan who could pull off that character.
Yeah, he's fantastic and worth watching. Literally everything he's in. I agree, and looking forward to season 4 when that drops as well. So that'll be a lot of fun. But that's going to do it for this week's episode. As always, we cannot thank you enough for your continued support. Coming up next week, we will be reviewing the Ana de Armas feature film, Ballerina, set in the world of John Wick. And we will also be reviewing the Hulu Predator Killer of Killers film, which is the animated anthology film. Excited to check that one out as well. And we'll talk about it next week. But until then, I'm Josh. He's Brad. And we'll see you next time. To find all of the episodes of We'll Bring the Popcorn, go to our YouTube page, hit the like and subscription button so you're getting our episodes when they drop each and every Monday. If you're listening to us in the audio room on any of the podcasting platforms that we're on, please don't forget to give us a 5-star review. It really helps elevate the profile of the show. And don't forget to go to willbringthepopcorn.com, where it has all of our archive videos, all of our social media information, as well as our merch store, so you continue to support the show in that way. We cannot thank you enough for your continued support.